Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Standard Open in Orlando, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm here with Jeff Hoogland for the Spotlight. You have made another top 8, Season 2. This is your first in Season 2, but
it is.
Many on the year.
Yep, fourth on the year, I think. 3 modern now, standard.
Keeping hold of that number 1 spot, hoping to continue to hold on to that spot, as we have a top 8 coming up with you and number 2, Jerry Thompson.
Correct.
To decide where these points are going.
Yeah, there's only 2 points between us right now, so even a single spot difference is gonna decide everything.
Well, we're talking about Abzan Seasons Past. You played this in Atlanta. You had a decent finish there, but now you've got the top 8 under your belt with it. Talk about the changes this deck's gone through and what you're trying to do with it.
So the big thing that really changed between Atlanta and here is I feel like it's pushing more towards a control deck and less of a mid-range deck. And the big difference there is that I'm no longer playing copies of Tireless Tracker. Tireless Tracker, while it generates a lot of value, I found that Atlanta I kept having games where I was losing with a bunch of clues on the table and I was winning with a bunch of clues on the table. So like in both spectrums of the games, it was just like generating things that I wasn't having time to spend my mana doing. And having Seasons Pass at our top end already gives us something to vomit piles of mana into, so we really didn't need this additional engine in the deck that was susceptible to removal and reflector mages and all this other nonsense in the format.
Right, this deck is almost kind of moving away from the black-green Seasons Past to the white-black control deck splashing green for Seasons Past.
And Sylvan Advocate, really, I think Sylvan Advocate is the bigger draw to green in this deck than Seasons Past even. It's almost like we're already in green for Advocates, let's just go ahead and throw the Past in as the top engine, but I can't emphasize enough how good Sylvan Advocate is in this deck. We're playing the full 8 creature lands, and like the number of times where you play your Advocate on turn 6 and then smash with a 4-power Shambling Vent to do an 8-point life swing is huge.
Yeah, we saw you use the vents against Tom Ross in your match against him, where there was so much life being gained.
I think I gained like 25 life in our second game. Definitely won the match.
So the keys of the deck are the 8 creature lands, Sylvan Advocate, and then of course you have kind of this white-black removal suite plus planeswalkers. Yeah,
so like the reason to be in white, again, the creature land is great, but we have tools like Anguish Unmaking to deal with Ormondal and things like Evolutionary Leap cleanly. Sorin is just such a powerful card, and one of the things that you often do with him that I think isn't very natural for a lot of people to do is it's often a 6 mana, kill your thing, gain 7 life. You deal 5 damage to something and then they attack it for 2 or 3, and that was just good enough. It fogged for a turn and was a removal spell.
Right. So you've got all the removal spells from Grasp, Ultimate Price, Ruinous Path, Awakening, but you've also added some more Read the Bones and Nissa to the deck. This is kind of where the deck was lacking in Atlanta, but you're making up for it here.
Correct, yeah. So we mentioned the move away from Tireless Tracker. Read the Bones is such a better top deck in the late game because it gives you that fuel right away, whereas Tireless Tracker also encourages you to do awkward things like hold land drops in your hand. And actually, my match against Cedric last week, that directly lost me our second game, so I was holding a land for a Tireless Tracker.
Yeah. Of course, you've got your Dark Petition Bullets, so you've got your Virulent Plague in here to take care of the tokens. That green-white tokens was everywhere.
Yep.
How'd you do against it overall?
I actually only played it twice in the Swiss, and I split with it. I beat Jessup on camera, and then I lost to Thompson on camera. I think on average that matchup is favorable for us. In my second game against Jessup, for instance, he had their best curve of Advocate into Nissa, into Gideon, into Avacyn, and we won that game. Mm-hmm. So I think we have the tools on average to beat them. One of the things I've seen a lot of people doing when they take this deck is cutting copies of Languish because you have Dark Petition, so you have more virtual copies. I can't emphasize enough how important having this card on turn 4 is against so much of the format. Not only that, but also being able to threaten the second copy immediately once they play out their backup threats so they weren't getting blown out by the first one.
Yeah, day 2 you played a bunch of the Humans decks, and having double Languish was the key to winning what I saw in both matches.
Yeah, definitely, because good Humans players are only going to give you 2 or 3 cards out of it and then play back out. And a lot of times they just can't afford to play on the second one, so you want to have it as often as possible.
Okay. What would you advise to someone? So we're going to have a writer take your deck through a league. What are some tips to this deck that they might not see on first glance?
The most important thing is similar to how the Jund mirrors or green-black mirrors play out in Modern, the discard spells are very bad against other black-based decks in the format. I think a lot of people are inclined to bring Transguess and Duresses in against the black-white control deck. I don't think that's where you want to be. You want all of your cards to be live off the top of your deck in the late game so you can be answering their threats as opposed to hoping to take them out of their hand.
Okay. Anything else going in the sideboard we should know?
Lambolt Pacifist was a new card this week that I don't think I mentioned earlier. It's a huge improvement. It's great against both the decks that are trying to get under you and the decks that are trying to go over the top of you. It lets you basically Sylvan Advocates 5 and 6 against Ramp and like the Blue-Red Eldrazi deck.
All right. Of course, we got to pinpoint Kalidas, and my favorite, Dragon Lord Jamoka here, is just an absolute beating against all the aggressive decks.
Yeah, Jamoka is in the sideboard this week. I'm favoring the Linval in the main deck, but Jamoka is so good against not only the counter spell decks, but also anything playing Reality Smasher. The stats line up great there, and so we saw my match against Tom. You just can't race this card.
Yeah. All right. Well, you're back in another top 8. You're holding on to your number 1 spot. This is a standard one. We've got Abzan Seasons Pass. Hope you enjoy the videos. Jeff, thanks for the deck tech.
Thanks, Nick.